Welcome to today's video. Have you ever wondered why some of the most mysterious people in the Bible just show up one day, do something incredible, and then vanish? The Magi are like that. They come from the east. We don't know exactly where. We're not told how many there were. We're not even given their names in the Bible. And yet, they were there at the birth of Jesus. Not at the manger, not the night he was born, but later, in a house in Bethlehem. And they didn't just stop by to say hello. They came with gifts: gold, frankincense, and myrrh, costly treasures, royal treasures, prophetic treasures. But who were they, really? That's what I want to take you into today. Their story, their mystery, their journey. Because the Magi were more than side characters in a nativity scene. They were seekers of truth. They were scientists of the ancient world. They were the first Gentiles to ever worship Jesus. Matthew chapter 2 says, "Now, after Jesus was born in Bethlehem of Judea, in the days of Herod the king, behold, wise men from the east came to Jerusalem, saying, 'Where is he who has been born King of the Jews?'" Now that right there, that phrase, "from the east," might seem simple, but in the ancient world, the east meant places like Babylon, Persia, Media, modern-day Iraq or Iran. These were lands filled with scholars, astronomers, priests, and in fact, the word used in the original Greek is magoi. It's where we get the word Magi. In the Old Testament, we find Magi in the court of Nebuchadnezzar, the Babylonian king who destroyed Jerusalem. Do you remember Daniel? He was placed over the wise men of Babylon, the Magoi. So it's possible, even likely, that these Magi were part of that same tradition. They weren't kings. They were scholars, priests, star watchers, not Jewish, but possibly deeply familiar with Jewish prophecies. Now let's talk about the star, because they said something strange. "We have seen his star in the east and have come to worship him." They didn't say a star, they said his star. These were not gullible men chasing rumors. These were educated observers of the sky. And whatever they saw, it convinced them a king had been born. Some believe they saw a rare planetary conjunction, like Jupiter and Saturn, aligning around 7 BC. Others think it may have been a comet, or even a supernatural event. But whatever it was, it moved. It led them. It stopped over a specific location. That doesn't sound like a normal star. It sounds like a divine sign. And more than that, it means these men were looking for something. Waiting, hoping, watching the sky for a sign of the Messiah. How would Gentile astrologers know that? Well, that takes us back to Babylon, to Daniel, to the time when Jewish prophecy may have been preserved among the wise men of the East. Maybe, just maybe, they remembered. Now, imagine the journey. If they came from Babylon or Persia, they would have traveled around 800 to 1,000 miles. Through deserts, mountains, across rivers, past bandits and danger. And they weren't on 3 little camels with matching robes. This was probably a large caravan, dozens of people, servants, guards, supplies. This was an official mission. They were looking for the King of the Jews. Now think about that. They weren't Jewish. They had their own religion, their own kings. But something about this birth, this star, this prophecy, called them out of their own world. So they went. Not just to observe, not just to confirm, but to worship. When they arrived in Jerusalem, they made a bold move. They walked into the capital city and started asking, "Where is he who has been born King of the Jews?" That may not seem controversial to us, but it was dangerous back then. Because there already was a king of the Jews, Herod, and Herod didn't take well to rivals. Matthew tells us, when Herod heard this, he was disturbed, and all Jerusalem with him. You see, Herod was a paranoid, power-hungry ruler. He'd killed his own wife and sons just to stay in power. So when these foreign dignitaries started talking about a new king, Herod went into full panic mode. He summoned the Jewish priests and scribes and asked them where the Messiah was supposed to be born. They quoted Micah, "In Bethlehem of Judea, for out of you shall come a ruler who will shepherd my people Israel." So Herod secretly called the Magi and said, "Go to Bethlehem. Search carefully for the child, and when you find him, come tell me, so I can go worship too." Yeah, right. The Magi left Jerusalem and headed toward Bethlehem, just a few miles away, and suddenly, the star appeared again. It went before them and then stopped, right over the place where the child was. And when they saw it, the Bible says, they rejoiced with exceedingly great joy. That's not casual joy. That's overwhelming, emotional, tears in your eyes joy. They entered the house, not a stable, but a house, and they saw the child with Mary, and they fell down and worshipped him.
Can you picture that?
Grown men, powerful men, wealthy, educated men, falling on their knees before a toddler in a humble home. And they gave him gifts, gold for a king, frankincense for a god, myrrh for a burial. They were honoring Jesus as more than just royalty. They were proclaiming something divine and something sacrificial. Did they understand the full weight of it? Probably not. But the Spirit of God was moving through them. That night, God spoke to them in a dream. He warned them, "Do not return to Herod." So they listened, and they slipped away, quietly, secretly, by another route. And just like that, they vanished from the Bible. We never hear about them again. No follow-up visit, no biography, no names, but their legacy remains. So what do we take from this? The Magi were outsiders, foreigners, pagans by Jewish standards, and yet they were the first to recognize Jesus as king and worship him. Isn't that amazing? They weren't there for religion. They weren't Jewish. They weren't even told by angels. They were seekers. And when the sign appeared, they left everything. They crossed continents, endured deserts, risked their lives. All for one moment, to kneel before Jesus. And in that moment, they fulfilled prophecy. Isaiah 60 said, "Nations will come to your light, and kings to the brightness of your dawn. They shall bring gold and frankincense, and proclaim the praise of the Lord." Psalm 72 said, "May the kings of Sheba and Seba bring gifts, and may all kings fall down before him." The Magi were the first fruits of the Gentile world coming to Christ, not with swords, not with armies, but with worship. So let me ask you something. What are you seeking? Because the Magi show us this. If you truly seek him, you will find him. Not in palaces, not among the powerful, but in humility, in quietness, in truth. The King of Kings still receives the gifts of those who come to him with open hands. Gold, frankincense, myrrh, or maybe just your heart. Thank you for watching. Subscribe for more deep dive biblical stories and mysteries. Leave a comment. What do you think the Magi saw in the sky?